Mr. Donwy.
Question 7.
Mr. Speaker, sir, with your permission, may I take questions 7 and 8 together?
Yes, please.
Thank you. The current requirement for point-to-point transport or P2P drivers to check for items left behind by passengers at the end of every trip is a long-standing one. Under Rule 39(1) of the Road Traffic Public Service Vehicles, Vocational Licenses and Conduct of Drivers, Conductors, Trishaw Riders and Passengers Rules. It is meant to serve the interests of drivers as it aims to avoid disputes when passengers leave belongings in their vehicles. However, recognizing operational constraints, drivers are not expected to stop their vehicles and get out of their seats to check for items left behind by passengers. Instead, a quick visual scan from the driver's seat will be sufficient. P2P drivers are taught this practice during their vocational license training course. Passengers are also reminded to be responsible for their belongings when taking point-to-point trips. For example, some operators provide reminders to passengers at the end of the trips through app notifications. I would like to assure members that the current rule is not meant to be punitive, but instead to encourage a good practice. LTA has only issued warnings in a few instances and has not imposed any financial penalties or demerit points on drivers for non-compliance. The warning recently issued to a driver for breaching this rule has been withdrawn following appeals to LTA through the Driver's Member of Parliament and the National Taxi Association. LTA will take this opportunity to not only review how this best practice should be encouraged to protect the interests of both drivers and their passengers, but also conduct a broader review of best practices for P2P drivers. LTA is thus working with our tripartite partners, our P2P operators, and the drivers' associations to undertake this review, taking into consideration recent public feedback, and will share the outcome of the review when ready.
Mr. Donwy.
Thank you, Speaker. In Mandarin. 我有一个提问。首先，我要申报我的父亲、舅舅和表弟是德士师傅。部长是否可考虑完完全全地把这个规定给取消掉？实际上，在交通巅峰期，德士司机是不可能为了检查前一组乘客是否遗留下物品而检查后座，包括把地毯给掀起来，然后拒绝下一组乘客上车，要求他们暂时不要上车。如果按照这个规定的精神，这是不切实际的。况且有些德士有播放音频提醒乘客检查物品后才下车。谢谢。
I thank the member for his clarification and suggestion. First, let me say that as I've explained in my reply earlier, the intent of this rule is really to encourage drivers to adopt this good practice to check for belongings that might have been left behind by passengers. This really serves not just the interests of the drivers but also the passengers. For the drivers, it's really to avoid, especially any potential dispute if the left item should cannot be found later on, and obviously for the passengers, if the drivers do that and discover the left item quickly, that will reduce the stress on the passengers. But having said that, actually the rule does recognize that there are operational constraints. So in fact, if you read the rule, it says as far as is practicable, which means that when we implement this, we also are not requiring the drivers to get out of their cars, as the members have said, to check for left items. Really, it is doing a quick visual scan from the driver's seat, and I think that will suffice. And indeed, many drivers do actually find left items behind just by visual scanning. But having said that, as I've said, we have actually not imposed any penalties of financial penalties or demerit points on drivers, just written warning in a few instances, and that's really to encourage adoption of the good practice. And as I've said, we hear the feedback from the drivers community, the association, as well as members, and we will take this opportunity to conduct a broader review, not just of this rule, how we can encourage this practice without making it seem too onerous, as well as actually reviewing broader best practices for P2P drivers. And we are doing it with the P2P operators as well as the drivers associations. And we will share it when we are ready with the outcome.
Ms. Yuan Ling.
Thank you, SMS. Our driving community at the National Taxi Association, the National Private Hire Vehicles Association, had expressed their concerns over the practical realities of being able to check with absolute certainty whether a passenger had left their belongings in the cars where they alight. And I'm very glad that the LTA will be considering lifting this or considering relooking at this rule on punitive actions against our drivers if they haven't done so. But however, given this and the feedback that the drivers have given, will the LTA also look at joint public education campaigns, letting our drivers and passengers know that it is a joint effort on belongings that's left behind, and also to work with more of the taxi and private hire platforms on ensuring that there are reminders, whether it's on the app or in the taxi via stickers and all that, on reminding people not to leave their items behind. Thank you.
Certainly, we will work together with our P2P operators as well as the associations to look at how we can remind drivers as well as passengers, to take some responsibility in terms of stewardship of the vehicles, as well as responsibility for their personal belongings through notices or apps and so on. And just to share with members too, besides teaching the drivers this practice during their vocational license training course, they are also reminded of this practice when they undergo their refresher course.